I never have no bad intention for no one. I never have. There's a draw over there. Why won't you bring?
Alright, so now that we got the pinion gears off, I want to compare them, but this is still hot. I'm going to let it cool down, and we'll compare the pinion gears in a minute. And I think I can bring it here, yeah. But for now, we're going to compare the motors, and so I wanted to make sure the shafts are the exact same size. They have different size shafts, so the way to do that is I can take the new pinion gear that's here and I can put it on here and see if it fits on here, and if it fits on there snugly, that lets me know that it is the right size, and it does. It fits real snug. So these both have the same size shaft. That's the word for it. It's called a shaft. Shaft is connected to the armature. It is the base, the center of the armature inside there, and we'll talk about motor parts, we'll talk about armatures. So now that we know the shafts are the same, we can continue with the operation. I'm going to get my screwdriver. Yes, I'm using the number 2 screwdriver, and I'm going to take the mounting plate off. And it's a little, you see I have a little heat damage there. It's not much. I don't think it hurts if it's a little heat damage. So we're going to get this off. See how I'm doing? I'm spinning it. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you all the rule for using screwdrivers and taking out screws. I'm sure some of you know it, but some of you that are brand new, you don't. How do you remember which way to turn it? Well, the rule is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So right now I'm loosening it, so this is the left. Left actually is counterclockwise, and you go by the top. So I'm turning it to the left now, and left loosens counterclockwise. If I want to tighten it, I turn it to the right. That's righty-tighty. So that's how you remember which way to turn your screwdriver when you're using it, either to tighten or loosen it. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And with practice you get good at it. I'm going to spin a little bit, make it faster. I'm going to take this here. Now I'll look at the plate, and the motor's going to go in like this, if I recall. Yes, it's going to go in straight down. So I got to decide where do I want my wires to point. So I want them to point up like that. So I'm going to take the plate, put it on here like that, and now my wires are pointing up like that, and I can make my connections. So I'm going to get the screw. This is the same screw that came with the old one. Put it here. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to tighten it. Well, I'm going to get it started. I'm not going to tighten it, so I'm getting it started. I'm going to get the next screw. And it's always good to start the screws, get them started before you tighten them, to make sure they're lined up and everything's fitting properly. And it feels like it is. It looks like the holes lined up really good. This is not always the case. Sometimes you get a motor or you get a part where it doesn't line up good. And let's do this. And when that's the case, it takes a little bit more creativity to get the job done. Uh-oh, looks like I got it wrong. There it goes. Okay. And it's going in. So now I can tighten it. And I think I'm going to put a little thread locker on it. Some of the other, I look at other channels and websites, and I follow other people's advice. Because even though I've been in electronics for quite a while, I have not been doing RC cars since forever. So right here, this is what's called medium strength thread locker. So this it helps prevent the threads from backing out. And so it's good to put these in to secure threads. So this is new. How does this work? Never used it before. Oh, okay. I need to cut that and squeeze it there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remember my utility knife. So I'm going to take my utility knife and cut the tip here like that. Ooh, it's coming out all over the place. Let me get something to catch it. Don't want to make any mess. Put the knife up so I don't cut myself. Alright, so now I'm going to put the thread locker on the threads. Don't want to get none of this stuff on my hands. This is probably something like super glue. So it's just still running out. Well, push the screws in and put the thread locker on the screws, just like that. And now I'm going to screw them in. So this, when it sets, it makes it difficult to take the screws off. And that's what you want. You don't want to be racing your car, driving your car, and all of a sudden your darn motor mounting screws start getting loose. And it's like, what's wrong with my car? It's acting funny. You know? It's because, and so now the mechanics field, I'm using the mechanics field to figure out how tight I want this. I want it pretty tight because these screws have fine threads. That means they're close and they can be tightened pretty good. And I'm tightening them pretty good. And I feel good about that, so I'm going to stop. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is try to get an idea of how far to push the pinion gear, the old pinion gear, onto the new motor. So what I'm going to do is take the motor, I'm going to put it in place, just like it'll go in place when it's done. And I'm going to take the pinion gear and I'm going to place it on top of the shaft of the motor and try to get an idea. So I'll see how it's going right there. Let me zoom in for you all. If I can. Alright, so see how that shaft, see how that shaft, whoops, I dropped it. I'll try it again. This is important because I don't want to push it on too far and then have to pull it back out. So I'm putting the motor in place. The motor has a support bracket on it right here, and I'm putting it in place like it's going to go. And I'm pretending that this pinion gear is on the motor. I'm just going to lay it on there, and that gives me an idea of how far I'm pushing it. It looks like it's, if you line it up with the spur gear like it's supposed to be lined up, it's going just inside the support bracket. That's how it was in the old motor, if you recall. So I'm going to push this pinion gear, and you can see how much the shaft is supposed to be coming out. So if you look at the tip, it looks like it's on there, but that's how much the shaft is supposed to be coming out. And if I do it perfectly like that, the whole pinion gear will line up perfectly with the spur gear. So that's the next step. Okay, so what you're looking at is the pinion gear mounted to the shaft of the new brushless motor. I was successful in that endeavor. However, I was not successful in recording the video. I was so focused on how to do that and how to do it safely because I had to heat the pinion gear and figure out how to do that. And what you're looking at now is the tools I used to do it. You see a carpenter's clamp, and you see some sockets, some small sockets, silver sockets that are used to remove nuts off of cars and various items. I put the motor between the clamp and the nuts, and I mashed onto the shaft while it was hot, and it worked. Okay, so now with the motor in place, look at that, pretty good, huh? Now with the motor in place, we're going to button it back up. So first thing is we're going to put on the gearbox cover along with the support rod that goes on here, and that's going to also, it's going to secure the motor, and it's going to cover up the spur gear and pinion. And it's just the reverse of going back on. Let me just say that in most cases, well, not most cases, a lot of cases, it generally takes a little more effort to put things back together than taking them apart. And that seems to be the case right now with putting the cover over the motor. It shouldn't be a problem. I think I'm just not centering it. There it goes. Alright. It's in place now. Okay, so now we're going to put our screws back in place. We're going to start with the big ones and work our way to the little ones. So remember this big long one here? Spin that one. Putting pressure on it as I spin it. Don't want it to slip because it makes it difficult to take it back out again or put it back in. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. They're about the same length, and I think it's these fellas right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. No, I need my number 1 screwdriver. Yeah.
I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. There's a draw over there. Why won't you bring a chair? Bring the whistler come and help me bun this here one. And give me pass it on the right. And make me bun it alright. When Babylon smell this here one, Lord, them get a fright. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody.
Okay, so the motor is secured, the screws are all back in, the chassis support rod, and we're ready for the ESC. But I discovered something. Remember this? I asked about these 2 little screws here. These 2 little screws actually held the old ESC in place here. If you recall, those 2 little screws held the ESC in place here. Well, this new ESC is the base is quite a bit bigger. So it is, and it has no screw holes. And I'm not drilling any screw holes in there because I don't know what's in there. So I am electing to use epoxy to secure this, not epoxy but silicone to secure the new ESC. And as I set it down to put it in, I noticed that it's so much bigger it will not fit in with the chassis support rod there like that. And let's see if I can scoot it underneath. Let's see if that happens. No, I'm gonna take it off and then do a test fit. Also, I noticed, look how long the wires are. The way this will work, this wire is going to go to the receiver, which I'm going to put here. I'm going to put the receiver on top like that. This wire goes to the receiver, and the servo goes to the receiver as well. So that works fine. And I'm going to use a zip tie to secure that like it was before. The other one had a zip tie. But these wires, and also the switch, I got to decide what to do with the switch. How am I going to use the switch? I could secure it. Hey, that's an idea. I can secure it to the bottom of the support bracket. No, I can't because the drive shaft's in the way. So I got to figure out how to do the switch, and I have to take the support bracket off in order to secure the ESC. And these wires are these connecting wires to the motor are very long. The motor wires are connecting wires are long enough, and these are long, so you're looking like this. That's a lot of wires. So I think what I'm going to do is cut these in half, and about close to half, and resolder them so I don't have so much wire. So for now, I'm going to pause the video again and take the support bracket off and see how things will fit. Do a test fit then. Okay. Okay, so now what I did was I actually removed the shrink wraps from the wires, and now the connectors are exposed. And now with the connectors exposed, I can unsolder them, cut them shorter, and solder them back on and put some more shrink wrap on. So that's what I'm doing now.
There's a joy over there. Why won't you bring a cheer? Bring the whistler come and help me burn this here one. And give me pass it on the right. And make me burn it all night. When Babylon smell this here one, Lord, them get a fright. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. When you smoke this weed, it make you want to succeed. It make the people unite, so they don't want to fight. They will be skanking all night, feeling alright. It's a the healing of the nation. They give a positive vibration in a this aeration. So why do they disturb man from smoking herb? I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. There's a joy over there. Why won't you bring a cheer? Bring the whistler come and help me burn this here one. Pass it on the right, and make me burn it all night. When Babylon smell this here one, Lord, them get a fright. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. Intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have. I never have nobody intention for no one. I never have.
that's it. Mid. I would have liked to have moved that one up a little bit, but I think it'll be alright. This one was perfect. That's too much. That's very near perfect. So now the ESC is ready. Oh, okay. Okay, so at this point I'm somewhat at an impasse because I have to wait for epoxy to dry. So what I decided to do was, remember this had its own power switch, on-off switch, and you can see it in this hole in the tape right here. And it was just flopping around on this wire right here, so I decided to glue it to the side of the ESC, and I glued it to this side of the ESC, so you can kind of see it if you look inside a little bit, and the tape is holding it in place until the epoxy sets. And so this epoxy is JP clear epoxy. It's very hard and it's permanent. It's a good epoxy. It's easy to use, and it's reusable, and it's not messy. It's other epoxy, so I like this stuff. So it's a permanent glue. As permanent can be, and my switch would be operational from the top of the ESC because there is no place else to put it in the car. However, it's drying right now, so I can't really do anything with the ESC. I've decided to secure it to the vehicle to use this. This is silicone, and this is clear silicone. And the reason why I'm using silicone because it dries flexible. If you look at this, it's kind of rubbery. You can see it. It's kind of rubbery, and this is how silicone works. It's totally waterproof, and as opposed to the switch, I may at someday want to replace the ESC. So if I use epoxy, I'd have to tear up the chassis to get it out. But with silicone, it holds things in place, but I can stick a screwdriver or a knife underneath it and just pry it up. So this is the perfect solution for securing it to the chassis because it's flexible, removable, but it holds it in place very well and is waterproof. While the epoxy is setting, I'm going to do another upgrade to this vehicle that I didn't tell you all about. Yep, that's right, shocks. These are some high quality metal shocks. If you look at them, they're all steel, all metal, and they're oil filled, very good shocks. And as opposed to the ones that came with this one, they're not bad shocks in terms of workmanship. They're okay. However, they're plastic, and they came with a little oil in them, but the oil is leaking out, and so but they never did work real good. So you can kind of see here where some of the oil and dirt just kind of got in there, and yeah. And if you look at them, you look the way this works, it's bouncy. I don't like that. And it's just soft. See, it's just bouncy like this. So when this runs, you look at the video that I did evaluating it, it just bounces all over the place, and it's fun, but I prefer not to bounce. I prefer it to be like these are the same type of shocks that's in the WL toys. 14400198878, whatever the number is, but it's 144001. These has excellent shocks. You see, you just push on them, and no bounce at all. Excellent shocks, just like a real car. And so that's the kind of shocks that I have for this one. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that transplant while that epoxy is setting. Shocks are a good upgrade depending on how you want to use your car. And for me, I just don't like real bouncy vehicles. And I don't do a lot of jumping. People who do the jumping with their cars, they need to have shocks, but I don't do a lot of jumping, so that's not really why I want them, but I just don't like the bounciness on the car. So I'm going to swap these out. Okay, new shocks in place. See how it slowly rises up? It goes down slow, slowly rises up, and no bounce. Absorb shocks, but no bounce. Okay, so here's the final update for the day. Successful with installing the motor. Fits like a glove. The ESC is in place. It's in place and being held by silicone caulk. Silicone caulk, as I said before, it's flexible and it's strong, but if I ever have a reason to take this out, I can stick a knife or a screwdriver underneath and pry it up. I was able to successfully use epoxy to secure the switch to the ESC, so this is very convenient to be able to switch the electronics on and off. And I also was successful in mounting the receiver, and so the receiver is mounted with silicone caulk, as just like I did with the ESC, and looks good. Looks like it's going to sit there pretty well. And it's just a matter now of making all the connections, and I was evaluating the connections and found out I had one problem. This has a 5-wire ESC, and the standard for the hobby grade, or the better hobby grades, is a 3-wire servo. I'm sorry, did I say ESC? This has a 5-wire servo. If you look at the wires, it's actually 5 here, and the receiver is set up to control a 3-wire servo. The 5, I did a little research, and you can't convert it. The 5-wire servos have no circuitry inside. It's just a motor and a resistor. When I say no circuitry, it has no controller board inside. And so the controls were for the servo was on this ESC, the old ESC. This controlled the 5-wire servo, whereas the replacement servos only have 3 wires, and they have a circuit board on the inside that actually controls and monitors and measures the rotational distance. So here is the original servo with 3 wires, and I did purchase a replacement servo just in case. Unfortunately, as you put them next to each other, my replacement one is too big, wrong size, much too large. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to pump the brakes on this particular aspect of the project and order a servo that will fit inside here. But other than that, it's just about ready to go. So all we have to do is get a servo, and then we'll be able to make all the connections and program the ESC, and I'll talk about that. This ESC is programmable, and this is a programming card for the ESC to program the characteristics of the car. So that's going to be interesting. So now we're going to pump the brakes on that and order another ESC, and maybe work on one of the other projects until, not an ESC but a servo, maybe work on one of the other projects until the servo comes in. So hope you're enjoying this lesson, this project, and I'm enjoying it, and so I look forward to finishing and getting this on the road and see how it does. And remember, do something good for yourself. Do something good for your community. Do something good for your people. And you can be someone good for the world. Arts and Grow out.